Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for another of our Dempsey Center Facebook Live interviews. Today, I am joined by Dr. Nicolette Erickson from Central Maine Medical Center, an oncologist at CMMC, and Judy Donnelly, who is a licensed dietitian and nutritionist at the Dempsey Center. Thank you both for joining me today. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure, I'll start. Hi, everybody. I'm Judy Donnelly. I'm the Nutrition Program Coordinator at the Dempsey Center. I guess that's it.
Thanks, Sophia. I'm Nicolette Erickson. I'm a medical oncologist at Central Maine Medical Center, and I treat a variety of cancers, but largely women's cancers, breast cancer, and gynecologic cancers. And thanks for the invitation.
Awesome. So let's dive right in. Today, we're going to be talking about the connections between obesity and cancer. So starting with the basics, Dr. Erickson, can you tell us what exactly is obesity and how common is it?
Well, there are different ways for us to try to measure our weight and what we consider a desirable weight. The most common method that's used right now is body mass index, which is a way of trying to correlate your weight with your height. There are other measures as well, but that's the one that's most commonly used and most accepted. Unfortunately, most of Americans, the majority of us, are way more than we should and more than is recommended. And up to 35% of the American population is actually considered obese by that standard.
So why are we talking about the connection between obesity and cancer? How does it increase the risk for cancer?
Well, I think it's an important thing to talk about because, first of all, a lot of people I don't think are really aware of this connection. When we are carrying extra weight, it not only increases your likelihood of being diagnosed with the cancer, it can also affect how well your cancer treatments work and what your prognosis is, and affects, it's various survivorship issues. So I think it's more just to sort of get the word out there. We all know we should be healthy and try to, maintain a healthy lifestyle, but not everyone knows that there's a link here between our weight and cancer.
So that actually brings me to my next question for Judy. Are there certain foods that are more likely to cause obesity or being overweight in a diet?
Well, there are. I mean, when you look at the food system that we have, there's an abundance of food in our grocery stores. And I think an important message for people to hear is the importance of just eating real food. We need to have a variety of different foods in our diet. Some provide us with more energy or calories than others. And I would say high fat foods, meats that are high fat tend to provide more calories than other foods. But then we also have like a whole grocery aisle full of beverages that are loaded with calories. And I don't think that people always recognize that drinking a couple of sodas a day or even juice for that matter, which is considered a healthy beverage, but it's still a calorie-dense beverage. And then, of course, we have many aisles in the grocery store that are just processed foods that aren't really providing us with the nutrients that we need, but they do provide us with a lot of calories. So it's important to just make good choices about what you're eating and choose foods that are as close to the natural form as possible.
Those are some really great tips. Dr. Erickson, are there any specific cancers that can be linked to obesity? Anything that's specific?
There are. The research would indicate that there are about 12 to 13 different cancers that can be correlated with obesity. Breast cancer is one of those, esophageal cancer, colorectal cancer, and even other diseases like multiple myeloma. So these 12 or 13 cancers actually account for about 40% of all the cancers that are diagnosed. So that's roughly half of all the cancers that are currently being diagnosed that may be influenced by our body weight.
Wow. Okay. So does avoiding weight gain or losing weight kind of decrease your risk, or is it not affected at all?
There is some evidence that would apply to both of those scenarios. I think I do want to put the disclaimer. It can be very difficult to research that directly because we're talking about years of people's lifetime, right? And your body weight can fluctuate over years of your life. So it's not an easy topic to study. But there definitely is research that would show, for example, that weight gain in your adult life will increase your risk for colorectal cancer or for uterine cancer for women. And that the reverse is that weight loss may also be associated with lower rates of cancer. And some of the strongest evidence that would correlate that actually comes from studying the bariatric population. So these are patients who have lost weight because of having weight loss surgery and comparing them with comparable patients who did not have the same type of intervention. The weight loss attributed to that surgery did result in lower risk of cancer. So I think there's a small body of evidence, but correlating.
Okay. So Judy, you work a lot with patients and their nutrition and their kind of health plans in terms of diet. What would you say is it okay to try to lose weight if you're going through a cancer experience?
I think there's a lot of situations where it is okay. If someone is overweight and they're in treatment for cancer, but they're still able to eat well, and any weight loss that they experience is an intentional weight loss, I think that can be safe in many cases. But certainly when people are in a situation where they're in treatment and they're losing weight because they're unable to take in enough nutrition to support themselves, that's a little bit of a different situation. But Dr. Erickson, would you agree with that? There are some situations where, it's okay to try to lose weight while you're in treatment.
Well, I do agree with that, but I think it's like, as you were saying, it really depends on why are you losing weight. I think if the weight loss is coming from making smarter and better choices and it's not happening too rapidly, then that's probably reasonable. I think the group of patients I see that are the most focused are probably the patients who have gone through a diagnosis or an initial treatment, and they're hoping to make some healthier choices to set them up for a good long, survivorship and being cancer-free. And I think that's a great opportunity where I refer patients to the Dempsey Center, to try to get that support and help for that.
So yes, obviously there is a connection between obesity and cancer, but it also can affect survivorship of people after they've gone through treatment and they've finished their treatment. Dr. Erickson, how can it affect someone through their cancer survivorship?
Well, some of the issues really could be more quality of life issues. So, for example, we know that for women who have breast cancer surgery, they have a higher rate of lymphedema or complications from radiation if they're carrying extra weight. That's not something that's necessarily going to affect your survival, but it is a big quality of life issue. Or for men who have surgery for prostate cancer, it can affect, some of their functioning after that surgery. So those are not issues that will necessarily limit your life, but may change the quality of your life. There's also some evidence that if you're carrying extra weight, it does actually affect your risk of recurrence as well. And so you could be at higher risk of recurrence.
That's really great information to know. Judy, back to you. Can you tell us a little bit about the support the Dempsey Center offers in terms of helping with, achieving a healthy weight during a cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. So my role at the center as the nutritionist is twofold. I'm available to anyone with a cancer diagnosis, whether you're in treatment or post-treatment, to help with dietary concerns. It might not just be around weight. There could be other issues related to diet going on, and I'm available to meet with people one-on-one. In addition to that, we offer a number of different cooking and nutrition programs. And these are actually open to the public, so family members can come. They're all virtual right now. We're looking forward to the day where we're opening our doors again. But those programs, the cooking and nutrition programs, really revolve around helping people understand how to build a better diet and to make their diet interesting. And then there's a little bit of a culinary component too. If people are a little bit unsure about they just don't feel like they have the best cooking skills, there's a culinary component to the programs as well, so that they can kind of see how to prepare different foods that they might not be familiar with. So, we don't focus specifically on weight loss in these programs, but I would say that, the emphasis is on eating really good quality foods and making sure your body is getting the nutrition that it needs to support itself and to live a healthy lifestyle. So I would encourage people to just check out the website to find out more about what's being offered and when it's being offered.
Awesome. Yeah, anyone who's watching, feel free to check out our website, dempseycenter.org, to see all of the programs that we're offering right now. Like Judy said, they are virtual, and hopefully we'll be back in person soon. I also want to mention to anybody watching right now, if you have any questions for either Dr. Erickson or Judy, please pop them in the comments section and we can get to them at the end of this live. We'll make sure to try to answer any questions that come through. So Judy, I wanted to talk a little bit specifically about, obviously obesity and cancer affects everyone differently, but specifically women who are postmenopausal often find weight loss to be a challenge. Is there any specific tips you have for this certain population?
I don't think that there are specific tips for this population that are all that different from other groups who are trying to take weight off. Although I would say that I agree with you, it can be very challenging, and people just want to look at the whole picture. It's not so much about specifically counting calories. I think it's looking at the quality of the calories that are being consumed, and to a certain extent where those calories are coming from. Some people do find it beneficial to just reel in a little bit on overall carbohydrate. And when I say that, I'm not talking about, fad diets where people eliminate all the carbohydrate from their diet, because typically people don't feel that great. Carbohydrate is a good energy source. And so, that the message is with carbohydrates, choose really good quality carbohydrate and include it as part of an overall balanced diet. And if you need tools to help you kind of just do a self-check on, how many calories do I need, number one, and what am I eating for calories? There's a couple of tools. We'll be popping up a handout as part of this Facebook Live presentation. And there's a couple of websites that are listed on that handout that you could check out that are, great tools to help people with their effort to eat well and take some weight off.
Awesome. Yes. So like Judy mentioned, we're going to pop a handout in the comments. You should be able to find that link there and take a look at that information on there. Dr. Erickson, can you tell us a little bit about any research that's being done currently on the connections between obesity and cancer?
Yeah, so obviously one of the intriguing questions from the research side is, how exactly does carrying this extra weight lead to an increased risk of cancer? And most of the research that's been done up to now would suggest that it's relating to raising levels of just chronic inflammation in the body. Other elements that are similar to that would include things like insulin resistance. I think people, if you're familiar with how diabetes can be associated with carrying extra weight. It's because your body becomes resistant to the effects of insulin and starts producing more insulin. And insulin is like a growth factor, stimulating your body to produce more cells. And the more time cells divide, the more chances there are for something to go wrong. So I actually saw a question in the comment section from Kaylin about, can losing small amounts of weight make a difference? And I think that ties in very well with this research, because I think that what we're seeing is that if we're measuring levels in our bodies of some of these inflammatory hormones like leptin or others, that sometimes even losing a modest amount of weight can make a significant difference in those biomarkers. So I don't think people should feel they have to, have a huge goal. Even small differences can really ultimately pay off.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's some nice research, and not just related to cancer risk, but chronic disease in general, that when you lose 5% of your body weight, it can make a pretty significant difference. That 5% might not get you down to your ideal weight range, but it can have a very positive impact on your health.
Wow. So even just the 5%, just even a little bit can be helpful. That's great to know. So thank you, Kaylin, for dropping that in the comments there. Another question that we have is possibly how exercise can impact your weight and your diet and things like that. Is there anything you guys would like to say about exercise and the connection there?
Well, I'll let Judy speak to, any impacts of exercise as it relates sort of with nutrition and diet. But I'll also say from the cancer perspective that independent of your weight, being physically active is a predictor for better survival and better prognosis if you're diagnosed with cancer, and for lower rates of cancer. So that's completely independent of what our weight is. So what we would like to see is for people getting roughly about 30 minutes of exercise a day. And I think walking is the perfect exercise because you're supporting your weight, you're working your entire body. So big supporter for exercise.
Yeah, there's so many benefits to exercise, just, also just in terms of mental health, getting oxygen to your brain, people usually feel better. But from a weight management standpoint, when you're exercising, you certainly are, your body is burning a few more calories. I would say it's common for people to think that they're burning more than they actually are when they get that 30 minutes of exercise. So it's important not to increase your consumption, if you're just doing small amounts of exercise. But it's the food and the exercise that go together that are going to make a difference in supporting efforts for weight loss. And I think I agree about walking. It's a convenient way for people to get exercise. You don't need to go to a gym. You don't need any special equipment other than a decent pair of shoes. A little bit of strength training when it's appropriate for you is important as well, because the strength training will actually build some of your muscle tissue. And when you build muscle tissue, that increases the energy demands of the body. So, there's benefit to both the cardio and a little bit of strength training. And then when you combine that with eating really well, you've really, developed this great lifestyle that's going to support you in your efforts.
That's great. Thank you both. We have another comment coming in. Casey says that she lost 100 pounds because she knew her risks were high and she feels better than she ever has. So that's great. Thank you for dropping that in there. And then we also have another question from Lois. Should we be limiting our eating to a window of hours, like interval fasting, or how is there kind of a method to doing that best?
I think that I don't believe that people need to limit their eating to certain hours. I know that you read a lot and we'll hear don't eat after 8 o'clock at night. And, bottom line is that people have these lifestyles that go throughout different hours of the day. So I think the important message is to eat the right amount of food. When people are eating after 8 o'clock at night, it might not be a salad. When people are eating after 8 o'clock at night, it's usually not the best food. So is it a problem to eat at that time? Not if the food quality is good. And if you need the fuel, it's not uncommon for me to get home from work late and be eating after 8. So I don't think that you have to limit yourself to certain times. And then there are the other gimmicks around fasting for a couple of days and then eating normal for a couple of days. And if it works for you, it's probably not particularly harmful. But I don't think there needs to be any hard and fast rules around that. I was a little bit wishy-washy.
No, that makes sense. If you're making sure that the things you're putting into your body are good, then I guess any time of day is a good time. Eat when you're hungry, I guess. Is that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really important to pay attention to hunger and actually why you're eating. So for those folks who eat a lot, like after that 8 o'clock hour, it's like, okay, you had dinner, you're winding down. Why are you eating at this time? Because you just want some ice cream or because you need some fuel? So if it's that you just want something, that's okay too. You can probably get away. You get ice cream is what I hear people eating most of the time, especially in the summer. It's like, get yourself this teeny little crock and fill it with whatever ice cream you like and enjoy the heck out of it and put it away. So really paying attention to the portion size, if that food is like a high calorie, not particularly nutrient dense food, is important. But also paying attention to why you're eating. Am I eating right now because my stomach is empty and I need fuel? Or am I eating for some other reason? And that's a good trigger when you come to that conclusion. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not even really hungry. Why am I here at the cracker cabinet? Do a little self-reflection. What is it that I need at this point in time?
That's a really great tip, and I should probably do that more as well. So Dr. Erickson, obviously, going into this, I was aware there's a connection between obesity and cancer. But is there anything, obviously it's very, very involved, both of them together, they impact each other. But is there anything else that you think would be important to add for anybody watching in terms of the connection between the two?
Well, I think sometimes we can get overwhelmed with all the health information that's out there. A general rule of thumb that I try to share with people is if you're thinking about a habit or something that's good for your heart, that's also probably good for preventing or improving your outlook from cancer, whether that's getting in regular exercise, consuming plenty of healthy fruits and vegetables. Just try to keep it simple so we don't get overwhelmed with too many rules for living.
I like that tip. That's easy to remember.
Love that too.
Judy, we have a question in the comments for you. What are the benefits of a plant-based diet in terms of cancer prevention?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. Well, a plant-based diet can mean a lot of things. It does not necessarily mean becoming a vegetarian. Plant-based diet just means that the majority of the food that you consume comes from the plant world as opposed to the animal foods. And, I don't think the message there is to say that animal foods are bad for us, but in terms of cancer risk reduction, the plant foods contain a lot of phytochemicals. So if that's a new word, just break it down, phyto and chemicals. So it's plant chemicals. So nutrients that are in these plants that help our bodies to fight cancer because they are anti-inflammatory nutrients. As Dr. Erickson mentioned earlier, it's like increasing levels of inflammation that tend to also increase our risk for cancer. So consuming a lot of colorful plant foods puts more of those anti-inflammatory nutrients into your diet. So that is really one of the bigger benefits of plant-based nutrition.
I would just chime in a little bit in that I do encourage people as much as possible to really focus on plant-based nutrition. Not to say that everyone needs to become vegan or vegetarian, but I think there's no question that meats, and particularly red meats, if you are consuming a lot of them, there are bad effects on your gut health and risk for colorectal cancers. And really bad news for you bacon lovers out there. But, the processed meats in particular can also be a bit of a toxin. Doesn't mean you can't ever have it, but really should try to limit that.
Yeah, thanks. I'm so glad you chimed in there. And I would say that the plant sources of protein, as you move away from those deli meats, processed meats, red meats, and start incorporating some of the plant sources of protein, such as legumes and soy products, those also contain some of those anti-inflammatory phytonutrients that can be very supportive to you.
I get a lot of questions about soy and risk for breast cancer. So I did want to touch on that a little bit, because as you were talking about, phytochemicals, and we know that soy is a source of phytoestrogen, which is sort of a plant-based estrogen. So that's kind of confusing because we think of estrogen as sort of promoting breast cancer. Yet at the same time, if we look around the globe, where soy consumption is the highest is also where the rates of breast cancer are the lowest. So I think having soy in your diet is not bad. Normal dietary soy is probably good for you and healthy. If you like soy milk, if you like tofu, no reason not to eat that. I'm not sure that I would encourage somebody to, maybe make a pharmaceutical grade soy shake, with supplements, but certainly normal dietary soy is fine.
Yeah, that's great. And for people who are not really familiar with tofu and how to prepare it, that's something that you would find in some of the nutrition classes at the Dempsey Center, the cooking classes. We feature tofu on a regular basis.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you guys so much. And thank you to everyone who was asking some questions in the comments. Again, that handout that Judy mentioned is in the comments if you want to click on that. And also go to our website, dempseycenter.org, and check out some of the programs that we have being offered. Like Judy said, cooking classes. We also offer individual consultations for patients as well. Thank you both so much for joining me. Is there anything else you'd like to add for our audience today?
I think don't get overwhelmed with weight loss, with efforts to lose weight. When you look at that handout, you'll see there's a number of different factors or lifestyles factors that you can pick and choose from. If you feel like, geez, I don't really think I eat enough fruits and vegetables, then you can just focus on that. Or if you feel like, wow, I drink a lot of beverages that have a lot of calories, then that might be a nice place to start. And so just make small steps in the right direction to have long-term benefits.
Great.
Alrighty. Well, I think that that pretty much covers it for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Dr. Erickson and Judy, for joining us today. This video will now be on Facebook, so if you missed it, you can definitely watch it again. Head to our website for more content, and thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Sophia.